Adeline Beans, and I will be covering the artistic lens.
Hi, I'm Emily Peters, and I will be covering the historical lens.
And I'm Caitlin Barrett, and I'll be covering the psychological lens. We explored racism in children's films, and we specifically focused on Disney's productions.
Our race group research question is, do Disney films portray underlying plot lines and characters?
Our group thesis is the historical and lyrical discrimination in Disney movies has caused psychological damage to young minds around the world.
Our group solution is to eliminate some of the damage done to children through these films. Conversations in the home and in school systems should be taken seriously to explain to young minds the severity of racial stereotyping in our culture. Now to Emily with the historical perspective.
My thesis was historically this perpetuation of racial stereotypes in Disney films since the 1940s has caused a detriment to children's perspectives of the races around them. The first claim that I will be talking about is stereotype portrayals. Throughout the course of Disney films, while they have been seen as discredited, a recurring underlying theme in older films is racist stereotypes. The Yellow Peril was a period where Asians were considered a danger to the Western society, and they characterized them with yellow skin, slanted eyes, and big teeth. And through anthropomorphized cats in The Aristocrats and Lady and the Tramp, they have slanted eyes and big teeth, as you can see from Shingun and Cyan. The next stereotype that I will be talking about is when Middle Eastern women are sexualized. Jahan Zabdar, the author of Islamicate, states that as the belly dancer, Muslim women can attract the attention of notable superheroes who in turn perceive them as oppressed and second-class citizens who need to be saved. While Dar's argument applies to comic book characters, the characters in Disney's Aladdin, such as these belly dancers and Princess Jasmine, have been sexualized. Next is Adeline with the artistic lens.
My thesis was lyrics and artistic choices in Disney songs can carry racial inferences that go unnoticed and do cause damage to impressionable young minds. I Want to Be Like You is a song from the film The Jungle Book. In this song, the character King Louie, named after Louis Armstrong, who is a famous African-American jazz figure, drawn as an ape and speaks and sings in jive, or a type of broken English. These characters sang, "I want to be a man cub and stroll right into town and be just like the other men. I'm tired of monkeying around. Oh, ooby-doo, I want to be like you. I want to walk like you, talk like you too." These lyrics relate to the Little Mermaid's Part of Your World lyrics. Up where they walk, up where they run, up where they sail all day in the sun. Wandering free, wish I could be part of that world. Both I Want to Be Like You and Part of Your World talk about how these characters aren't worth anything because they are not human. This will align with the treatment of African Americans in America during the Civil Rights Act, before the Civil Rights Act was passed. Though these can seem far-fetched, there are more obvious lyrical mistakes. For example, in the movie Peter Pan, the lyrics of What Makes the Red Man Red. What makes the red man red? Let's go back a million years, the first Injun prince. He kissed a maid and started to blush, and we've been blushing ever since. We've got it from the headman, or the real true story of the red man. No matter what's been written or said, now you know what makes the red man red. These lyrics both racially stereotype by calling African Americans red, and also change traditional stories that go along with these groups of people. Now to Caitlin with the psychological lens.
So my thesis was, children have psychologically a more Disney-like worldview instead of a real view of the world, looking at things portrayed in Disney movies as correct and the way the world is. Andreas Mueller-Hartmann, a German author and teacher, recalls an occurrence when teaching in Oakton, Minnesota. Hartmann asked his students who wrote the fairy tales that we are familiar with today, and they responded with Walt Disney, but the root creators of most fairy tales were the Grimm brothers. This situation proves that children have a more Disney-like worldview. For years, Disney movies have been the first narrative children see of the world, creating an implicit bias because of what they see in these films. What Walt Disney and the whole Walt Disney Company has done is create an outlandish view of other races, ethnicities, and the world. Inputting these stereotypes creates an outlandish view of other races and ethnicities. Now to Adeline with our counterclaim.
Our group's counterclaim is, though the improvement in newer Disney movies and the politics of innocence, you can argue that Disney has become more progressive and racially aware. Newer movies can be seen as more progressive. These examples of these are Princess and the Frog, Moana, and Hercules. Though Hercules is an older movie released in 1997, but but their music is led by characters called the Muses. These Muses are African American women drawn of all shapes and sizes. They also are voiced by African American women. The Princess and the Frog 2009 and Moana 2016 both took similar routes in bringing in musicians and screenwriters that will culturally relate to these movies to help them in the writing process. The Princess and the Frog specifically brought in New Orleans jazz musicians such as Terrence Blanchard and Dr. John to help them write and compose the soundtrack. Moana brought in twin screenwriters, Aaron and Jordan Candell, who are both born and live in Hawaii, to help them write Moana. These movies show progress in Disney's image of ethnicities, but these movies are not perfect. The Black Atlantic, a blog written by students at Duke University, explained how Disney has taken and changed jazz age history and culture for the movie The Princess and the Frog. The authors state, as many of these critics have argued, setting the film in jazz age without truly dealing with the implications that Tiana and other black characters would have clearly found has a negative impact on how the audience perceives history. And now to Caitlin with an expansion on politics of innocence.
Disney's main focus was originally to be geared towards younger children. Due to the stance in the world that they have gained, it is believed that Disney falls under the category of politics of innocence. Disney is said to be too innocent for the world of politics. Although some people will agree with this, others do not. Disney is equal to any other film company and has input these racial stereotypes into these films on their own account. Children are very easily influenced by what they see, especially at a young age. Now to Emily with a historical perspective.
The next claim that I will be talking about is policy as representative of film. In the United States, films have always been represented as policy. While these two films, Dumbo and To Fury or Space, may seem like they have nothing in common, they both have characters that represent policy during their time. Disney's Dumbo was made in 1941, where Chris Bell, a writer for the Conservative Telegraph, decided to comment on how when Dumbo and Timothy Q. Mouse land in a tree, meet 5 blackbirds, patently wisecracking, flashy-dressed caricatures of African Americans with a leader named Jim Crow. Jim Crow laws were black segregation laws in the South of the United States. Made in 1943, Disney's To Fury or Space was a propaganda war film to promote anti-Nazism in the rise of World War II. In the film, Donald Duck is in Nazi Germany and is forced to make artillery. He can be seen hailing to Adolf Hitler, Hirohito, and Benito Mussolini. The rendering of Hirohito has yellow skin, big eyes, and big teeth. And this is in relation to the Yellow Peril, which I mentioned earlier, where Americans thought that Asians were a threat to the Western world. These two movies correlate with a quote by James Q. Whitman, a lawyer and professor of comparative and foreign law at Yale University. He states that the Nazis did know and did care about American segregation, and it is clear that some of them were intrigued by the possibility of bringing Jim Crow to Germany, made serious proposals that something ought to be introduced to Germany. And now to Adeline with the artistic lens.
Disney's Dumbo includes crows that speak broken English, that speak broken English, but the voices behind the drawings cause more issues than the characters themselves. White actor Cliff Edwards voices the main character in this number, Jim Crow, a crow who stops Dumbo on the side of the road. The rest of the crows are voiced by the Hulls-Johnson Choir, which is an African-American men's choir. The Little Mermaid has also made mistakes in the drawings of their characters. In the song Under the Sea, there are 3 fish that are drawn different than the rest. These characters are drawn with stereotypical African-American features such as larger lips, wider nose, and wider set bodies. Sebastian also has a Jamaican accent and is delineated as a stereotypically lazy Jamaican man. Now to Emily to present our solution.
To reiterate our solution, due to the racial stereotyping in Disney films, implementing anti-racist education and comments about racism into children's lives to counteract these stereotypes. The limitations are that this idea is trying to change the school system, and there would be parents who would protest the idea of race being taught to their children. In a Lancaster Online article called In the Era of Charlottesville and Kaepernick, some Lancaster County educators look to address race in the classroom, written by Jeff Hawks, a staff writer. He visited a school in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where race was a central idea in the class. Hawks quotes Nick Myron, an anti-racist educator, who states, "If we can channel that very intentional and purposeful conversation about things that affect society, like racism, we can make good on the intentions we have so our impact matches our intent."
Adeline, describe an argument from one of your peers' individual reports that made you think differently about your team's solution or conclusion.
as you presented, but specifically in her IRR, had the argument about policy, mostly because I haven't really thought of Disney that way, and also because it was tackling a lot of films that I had never watched before, and then going back and watching them with our team and discussing them and discussing the policy of them. That really changed my opinion, and that argument really changed the presentation and how we presented all our information.
Caitlin, what is a way in which your team's resolution makes you think differently about your own individual research?
Well, looking at like Adeline and Emily's solutions, they all said that stereotyping in Disney films has implemented anti-racist education and conversations about racism into children's lives to counteract these stereotypes. That really helped me with my research because I found lots of different solutions, but they helped me find the one that was.
Emily, give one specific way that your thinking changed as a result of learning about Adeline's findings.
My thinking changed based on Adeline's lens because without her artistic lens, I wouldn't have known about some song lyrics which I had in my IRR, which also kind of just went into the historical lens and kind of just led into the history behind why the lyrics were the way that they were.